now. In
So
3, 2, 1. I feel like I'm on the Joe Rogan Experience when I do it like that. So welcome. This is another session of the Jordan Peterson webinar discussion group. My name is Leroy. I am your friendly neighborhood organizer. I'm from Toronto, and I started this group because I hated the level of conversation that was happening on Facebook. So I've been playing around with webinars, with work, and I thought, hey, it would be so cool to like talk to people live about Jordan Peterson, because I always had good intentions of going to meetups in Toronto, but I never made it out to one. And then I thought, man, if we could meet for a webinar, it probably won't be that great, but it'll be better than nothing. It'll be at least better than, the conversations that are happening on Facebook. So I posted out a couple of feelers, and we've actually got 99 members at this point. So the next person that joins is going to be number 100. So our conversation groups are usually, sometimes it's just 2 people. Sometimes like tonight, it's 4 people. I think the most we've had is like 7 or 8. But that's kind of it in a nutshell. It's a really casual group. Nobody here is an expert. You're more than welcome to make mistakes. We don't persecute anyone. We don't crucify. Well, we might crucify. We'll give warning if we crucify. But enough about me. We're just going to go around and let everybody introduce themselves for about a minute or so. And then I was going to record about 10 minutes of our conversation just to give you a little taste of what goes on. Some people think that we have these really serious, like academic conversations, and it can get definitely, we're sincere in what we're doing, but in general, it's pretty casual. So first off, I'd like to introduce Bronson, who's joined us for, I think this is going to be, is it the 3rd time, Bronson?
Second. I know I've had a private conversation with you once.
Right. So we've talked, I think 3 times together, and I think everybody here I've had at least one-on-one conversation with for at least somewhat of in-depth, which is pretty cool. And Bronson is calling in from Florida, where it's pretty cold, not nearly as cold as Toronto, right, Bronson?
Right, not at all. The weather's really temperate over here. Yeah, I've basically just been somebody who's interested in the ideas communities, around Facebook and YouTube. I have a job where I have a lot of downtime, and I'm able to, use a lot of that time to think about ideas, to listen to, different perspectives, and that sort of informs, the idle time that I have there has sort of allowed me to hone in on some of this stuff. I've taken an interest in Peterson because I think he cast a lot of the arguments that I've been seeing all across the internet. A lot of the times between secular activists and people like William Lane Craig, or professionals, apologists, and he put a different perspective on religion. He sort of looked at it through this like sociobiological lens, but also sort of gave me some new insights, that I think I previously discounted and dismissed, and has allowed me to navigate my own political perspectives a little more clearly. Although I find that I've taken a lot for granted, and I'm sort of retreading a lot of old ground in that process. But it's an experience. I'm also trying to, have the sort of caliber of conversations where it's possible to just have a basic level of rapport with the other person, rather than seeing them as a name or image and then just tearing into them because of the contents of their thoughts, or however you've summarized that over the first few lines that you read. But yeah, Chuck, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Chuck. I guess easiest way to label me is I'm a seminary dropout / stay-at-home dad, and I raise chickens. Yeah, I'm definitely an oddball. But
No, that's common, Chuck.
oh
You
yeah,
you
totally
just haven't
common.
found the
Totally common.
Facebook group yet.
Yeah, yeah. I go from seminary to raising chickens. Who would have thought that would happen? But yeah, but no, I think that Peterson has a lot to add to the conversation, and is incredibly helpful in formulating coherent arguments in response to leftist ideology and postmodern neo-Marxism. But yeah, uh, yeah. So there you go.
Right on. Thanks, Chuck. Chuck, I believe, has the highest number of frequent flyer points on the Jordan Peterson Webinar Express. Well, no, hold on a second here. I think it might be, I think you and actually Michael might be tied.
Leroy,
Do you
I think
remember?
you win. No, Leroy, you win.
It's
You win.
not a competition.
You're right, Michael, it's not a competition, but Chuck, there are many times where I am present, but I am not really here.
Yeah, you say so.
But thank you for the introduction. I feel like Chuck is like our resident. There was a character in, I don't know if you guys remember the show Wise Guy?
Mm-mm.
It was, or no, am I thinking of Wise Guy? Well, there was a character like him in Wise Guy. There's another character like him in the movie Heat. Do you guys remember Heat with De Niro and Pacino?
Mm-mm.
Is anybody helping me out here?
Nope.
I mean, continue. I'm getting entertained now by being categorized as characters in movies. It's fun. Go for it.
Anyway, there was a character common in both of those where, you know, if you're in a serious problem and like no one else can help and you like need to get out of the situation, you can like call up this guy and he's in like a library and he's got like access to like, you know, 16 computer screens, and you know he can call in like all these different resources. And I feel like Chuck, he has this like nice library that he occasionally goes into to like pull down a volume, and it's like he can reach for like any volume we need on like any topic. Oh, and I think, are we moving to the library? Yes.
That's really impressive. I should, man, one of these days, Chuck, I'm going to send you my Demon the Fallen PDF and see if you remember them. I don't know if...
Your what?
Yeah, sorry. There's a role-playing game. It was called Demon the Fallen, and it borrowed from a lot of philosophy.
Okay.
Sorry, am I breaking up?
No, you're bringing up.
I think
Okay, yeah,
somebody's
yeah.
breaking up. But anyway, before we get out of hand, let's let Michael introduce himself.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah. Boy, I don't know quite where to start with that. Michael, Boston area, and quite frankly, I'm willing to have a conversation on any topic at all, as long as it's interesting, as long as it's open, as long as people are, interested in exploration and play. That's the critical quality in a conversation that and hopefully try to inspire.
That's awesome, and I really like, Michael, how you've been. Well, I guess you've always expressed the definition of play in at least a couple of times that you've been referencing it. But for me, I've never even heard. Well, I guess maybe I've heard that phrase before, but the way that you've been saying it, I feel like it's really been significant for me as a reminder that that play is at its fundamental core is exploring boundaries. And, you know, it's something that you can do skillfully or something you can do like unskillfully. You can do it so that you know, as Peterson says, you get invited back to play again, or you can do it in such a way where nobody ever wants to be anywhere near you.
Right. For sure.
Well, I mean, you can think of it, Leroy, like your unstructured early role-playing games, right? Where you're making up the rules as you start, defining the game, as you start playing the game.
Exactly. And it's so amazing now, right? Where when we were kids, right? Like if you were lucky enough that your neighbors or the kids on your street, a few of them might be interested in Dungeons and Dragons or role-playing games or something like that. But if you didn't have a group around you that played, like you were kind of out of luck. It's not like you can just, find people to play with. But now, right, you only, my intention was to have people from Toronto so that we could, build a community to start meeting people. But as I started finding the webinar is good enough for me right now. I don't even want to meet people at the bar, right? Like I'm sitting in my home. I don't have to pay any money. As soon as the conversation's finished, I close up my laptop, take 2 steps, and I'm in my bed. Like this is awesome.
And no bar tab to keep.
And no bar tab to keep. And no more having, 2 more pints than I need to. And then saying something stupid that I'll both regret and not remember.
I think that's part. That's sort of why I sort of ripped off of that for whatever reason. When I saw the Chuck's library, I have this huge library of gaming books. Right? That's where most of my knowledge is in role-playing systems and things like that. And I guess it sort of transitioned nicely into conversations about abstract ideas because a lot of the games borrow from a variety of different philosophies. Like some of the games are not just average fantasy, but they're, some of them are like these urban fantasy settings. Some of them, like there's some games that borrow extremely heavily from like postmodern philosophy to the point where like they use the same buzzwords that Foucault uses. And there's one in particular where you play a demon, right? But the demons have their own perspective for like what God did, how he created the universe. And I've always wondered to what extent that borrowed from actual theology, if at all. I know that there have been things, like they talk about the Grigori and all of these other entities and stuff. And it made me wonder, what would someone like who's versed in actual apologetics make of a bunch of these vignettes that sort of give you this subjective lens through which to perceive God through the eyes of angels.
Have you ever played the game God of War?
Yeah. Oh, I loved it. But I don't know how well it maps to Greek philosophy.
What's crazy is the Greek mythology in God of War was like almost textbook.
Was it?
Like it did an excellent job of laying down and really helped me navigate a conversation with one of my cousins who happens to be a neo-pagan.
Oh, wow.
She's like, yeah, I worship Gaia. And I'm like, wait, Gaia, the grandmother of Zeus? Gaia? And she's like, wait, what? I'm like, yeah, Gaia comes from Greek mythology. That's the grandmother of Zeus. And like 10 minutes ago, you were mocking Christianity because it's just as foolish as believing in Zeus. But you're believing in the grandmother of Zeus, while at the same time, like, what on earth are you talking about? And
right. You can't mock someone for believing in a sky daddy when you believe in the grandmother of a sky daddy and worship her. Like, it's just, I don't think that you should simplify it that way in the first place. But I mean, if we're going to play that game, you've just built an inescapable trap for yourself.
Of course. It was amazing to just be like, like, oh wow, like I actually know who Gaia is. It's not just this.
Right.
So funny.
Because like a lot of not Eastern, but a lot of what is it? Neo. Pretty much all the hippie.
New Age.
Right.
New Age. There you go. New
spirituality.
Age.
Yeah.
All the New Age religion that was out there. They were all about like worshiping Mother Earth, Gaia, and almost without even asking the question of who's God? Where does
Right.
that come from?
There's even pantheism sort of has a niche, sort of New Age neo-pagan group that is very much into that, with the incense and invoking the mother and all. It's like you're borrowing from old theologies or mythologies that you don't really understand, like, and it's.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like I actually met a guy.
Does it sound like Chuck is cutting out, Bronson? Do you hear him okay?
He
He
considered himself a priest of Diana, but it's like, wait, am I cutting out?
Yeah, it sounded like you were. But actually, while we have an interruption, I just wanted to stop recording for a bit. So I just wanted to say thank you to anybody who's watching this video, and if you would like to join us, all you have to do is click on the link. Join us, please. Exactly. Yeah, it's very simple. It's not very complicated. If you've never joined a webinar before, it's not like you need any kind of technical skill. You just click on the link. If there's any kind of a problem, I will probably message you on Facebook, or you can message me. Anyway, so we would love to have more people join. And if we get more than about like 8 people, we would normally break up into 2 separate groups. So the goal isn't to have like, huge numbers of people where just one person is talking. The whole idea is to have, these small, groups of like 4 to 6 people where like everybody gets a chance to speak. And that's about it. That's all we kind of do here. So yeah.
Tomorrow we're going to be talking about.
Oh yeah, Chuck, tell them about tomorrow.
Tomorrow we're going to be talking about free will, determinism, and fate and fatalism and all the other fun isms out there, laid out in a very simple format that anyone can understand. And yeah, it'll be fun.
Awesome. So Chuck has been in the group since the beginning, and as I've mentioned several times, hopefully all of you have seen that. I'm very much open to having anybody host a webinar, not just on Jordan Peterson, like basically on anything you think would make for a good discussion. So if you're interested in being a host, you can either talk to me or you can talk to Chuck. We're both in the Jordan Peterson webinar study group. And like Chuck said, he's going to be hosting his discussion tomorrow so we're going to start at 8 o'clock, Chuck?
Yep, 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock. And normally we go for about an hour and a half, roughly 2 hours. And then sometimes if people want to chat later, there's usually a few people who hang around. So yeah, once again, please join us. And I will close off the recording.